according to the schedule, we should have been eating lunch by now. So I'll try to be brief. I don't have a presentation that has an advantage. And we will also have some opportunity to speak post-lunch session. So I will probably cover some of the issues. So unlike my seniors who speak from South Asia and Sri Lankan perspective, I cannot be that comprehensive. But let me start by saying that China, in the South Asian context, be it India or be it other economies, is the elephant in the room. So whenever we speak our economic development and others, China will be always there in the discussion in the room. I am an economist. I am not a security or strategic person, not from the international relations. So my intervention will be more from the economic justification. And as a disclaimer, the center I work for, Center for Policy Dialogue, one of the leading think tanks in Bangladesh, and Professor Raymond Sohan, when he founded it, one of his vision was to have an integrated regional cooperation in South Asia and also with China. So we work independently from the track 2 perspective for South Asia, and also we are one of the initiators of BCIM, and we feel proud that Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar, the initiative successfully went from track 2 to track 1. And one of the aspirations we had is to rediscover the lost Silk Route, the Kunming to Kolkata project that we wanted to have. And in 2013, the 11th BCIM forum, we organized it in Dhaka, had the first car rally starting from Kolkata to through Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Kunming. So we thought there is a great potential in the system. This is about the time when the BRI came into its full form, and after that we have seen a couple of state visits that are very significant from the Bangladesh perspective. In 2014, our Prime Minister, PM Hasina, she went to China, and in 2016, President Xi also visited. And if we look into the commitments made by the two top leaders, President Xi said that we agreed to elevate China-Bangladesh ties from comprehensive partnership of cooperation to a strategic partnership. PM Hasina, on the other hand, said Bangladesh is willing to actively work with China within the framework of the BRI and support building of an economic corridor linking BCIM. So you can understand the interest of the two countries and where it lies. In fact, China was always very important from Bangladesh perspective, particularly from the trade perspective. China is the leading bilateral trade partner for Bangladesh. So, but it is highly skewed towards Chinese export and Bangladesh's import compared to the other way around. We export only $1 billion last year, and it's increasing. Of course, I have to recognize that. But we, at the same time, we import approximately $40 billion, despite the fact that China provides 99% DFQF for 99% of the all products. So it's quite there. But since 2016, as Professor Srikant said, that there are significant commitments made. The commitments made was approximately $40 billion, $24.5 billion in bilateral assistance for infrastructure, $13.6 billion in joint venture, $20 billion in loan agreement. Not all of them came into scene, but in 2016, China signed 8 projects that is worth $19.45 billion, including the Podda Bridge Rail project for 3.3 billion, coal power plant in Paira 1.9 billion, digital connectivity 1 billion, and the power grid strengthening project $1.3 billion. In fact, at this moment, Bangladesh is the second highest receiver of Chinese assistance or investment or ODA or loans in South Asia after Pakistan. We are also the second largest economy after India in South Asia, so you can understand the scale is much higher compared to Maldives and Sri Lanka, perhaps Nepal as well, so that will happen there. Now, let me conclude, or let me go into the main stake after all this data and statistics. What are the issues we have? One of the issues is that this investment, not necessarily direct investment, what we call the FDI. FDI from China is not that much. It is about 12% of our total FDI stock. Mainly going to clothing and apparel. We are the second largest R&D exporters in the world. So China is the first. So we have that. The second one is the power. So overall Chinese assistance generally goes into the infrastructure, the transportation, and then followed by power, particularly coal power, coal-fired power. So that is there. So what are the concerns? You have spoken about Chinese loans are a bit expensive. Bangladesh generally takes loans from IDA, and IDA is the World Bank's window for soft loan, and ADB. So 60% of our total loans are from there at this moment of the total debt servicing that we have. Usually it is less than 1% of the interest. Chinese loans are generally 2%, and 2% they have service charges. So those are there. The grace period is shorter, of course, generally on an average 5 years. And the repayment period is also shorter, on an average 15 years. And that is also very significant. At this moment, I think not at this moment, as of June 2021, that is our fiscal year, July to June, we have approximately $4 billion debt outstanding figure with China. This 50% of which can be called ODA, 50% are suppliers credit or buyers credit. In past, China usually provided us with hard-term loans, buyers credit or Chinese credit. The highest, this is bilaterally one of the highest in a sense, after Japan. Japan provides about, this is 8% of our total debt, overseas debt. Japan we have 18%, but Japan has a long history of providing very significant assistance to us. So those are the concerns, but what are the general challenges we have? The general challenges we have is that one is external debt, you have talked about it. There is also a concern about environment, not only that the general idea of the finance the coal-fired project, but in general, the environmental assessments are in question worldwide, and there are also, I think, a question of good governance and costing of these projects. So feasibility studies, technical studies are very key or essential parts of the whole debate. But what we did not discuss a lot in this room from this morning, and I'm happy that I can add a new element to the discussion, otherwise you know this, all these things, is that generally Chinese ODA assistance are tied. And we, from Bangladesh, Nepal, and others, low-income countries, low and middle-income countries, have fought a long way to untie aid. I've been to GPDC, Development Cooperation Summit. OECD DEC is working towards untying aid, and this was a great debate during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that how can we untie foreign aid. And the 2005 Paris Declaration made a significant step towards that process. But for China, it is mostly tying aid. So over the last 1 decade or half, the tied aid, the concept of tied aid, has come back as well. So even if you have an expensive loan, but if you can give or provide the contract in a competitive manner, then it is much easier to have a more financial viability. But in general, and I will speak about it in probably the following session, I will conclude for the brevity of time, is that I can identify the 6 viabilities that we need to consider when we talk about BRI and such loans. And China is not the only one. India is providing a lot of assistance. So for South Asia, as a recipient countries, Nepal, Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka, and others, these issues will come very strongly. And this is an element that we are also discussing a lot of South-South cooperation. So BRI falls under that larger umbrella. So the first viability that we will talk about is technical or technological viability. Nepal's example through the Himalayan border is an example, so you can understand it has to be technically viable. Sometimes they move forward with this project and it may not be technically viable by a large extent. It has to be definitely financially viable, so we have to provide, we can give them back the loan, so we have to return them. Bangladesh has never defaulted in 50 years of its history, and we are very proud of it. The concern is that when we talk about financial viability, I'm also mentioning the third one, the economic viability, and I will explain, I'll give you a little bit of a hint of my thinking behind it. When you think about a project that has a much shorter grace period and the repayment period with the loan interest, you also have to think that this is something we have to pay back with dollars or foreign currencies. So there are 2 issues to be considered. One, the infrastructure should provide enough opportunity of economic activity so that we can actually generate government revenue and have the government will have the ability to pay back the loan. This is number one. The second thing, that it should create enough opportunity to generate foreign exchange so that we can pay back with foreign exchange. So there is a dual challenge of dual mismatch, and this is exactly what happened in Asian financial crisis. Some of the projects can be viable, but we may not have enough foreign exchange to return. And when you have, say, 4%, 5%, 2 more minutes, so I have enough. So when we have, when we are talking about 4%, 5%, think about when we are going to pay them back, how much our foreign currency will depreciate. Bangladesh, giving an example, we are celebrating a decade-long high growth. So our debt GDP ratio is often the indicator that we discuss in this context, can be very small. We had a very stable exchange rate as well, so our per capita income grew in dollar terms. But in last 1 year, $1 BDT exchange rate came down from 85, 86 to 107, 8 now at this moment. So about 20% depreciation of Taka happened in 1 year. So exactly your exchange interest rate will naturally increase very substantially. We often do not consider it when we talk about this interest rate in dollar terms. Because when we talk about financing these projects can be very important, but also we have to consider other alternatives. The ODA coming from traditional sources are limiting, but we have higher aspirations, not only from the political point of view, but also from the economic point of view, perhaps. But we have to think about the alternatives in a way that we need to find a source. If the traditional loan providers are not providing us enough opportunity, we can generate the resources from the domestic borrowing through banks and non-banks. So we have those sources. But why do we consider loans from foreign sources? Because of this foreign exchange constraint we have in this infrastructure projects. I will quickly go through I will talk about the environmental viability. We often do not talk about social viability as well. How these projects are going to affect the local communities and the residents. So there is a great need for land acquisition, and that we need to talk about those things as well. And finally, the political viability is the other elephant in the room from our domestic concerns as well. So the final line that has been said by many speakers before that it is to a large extent it is also a responsibility on our part, the onus is with the recipient countries, that we consider these viabilities and take our decisions accordingly. Hope to meet you after the lunch. Thank you very much.